I don't normally do project guns, much less videos about them, but in this case the project manages to combine one of my favorite guns of all time with my hobby of being a snowflake hipster. What I have here is an HK USP chambered in 10mm. I'm not going to make this an in-depth review of the USP because it's one of my absolute favorite guns ever, and I plan on making a thoroughly prepared, full-length video love letter about the platform in the near future. Rather, in this video I'll just talk about why I wanted a USP in 10mm, what was involved with the conversion process, and how it's been working for me. Answering the question of why is an easy one. It's because it's cool. One of the most common things I hear when I mention the project is, well, why would you do that? Just shoot 45 Super out of a 45 USP. All I can say is 10mm just has a coolness, a certain it factor that the 45 Super never will, and if you don't get that, I can't really help you. As for why all this trouble for a clunky old USP, I shoot USPs extremely well for whatever reason, and I adore their look, and I really just wanted a way to enjoy the fun and effective 10mm caliber in that family. Obviously, in an ideal world, HK would have made the USP in 10mm from the factory, but they didn't. Luckily, this conversion isn't overly hard. I'll also note that this is far from some great leap into the unknown. Plenty of people have done the conversion, and I haven't seen any posts yet that their gun exploded or anything else. USPs are nothing if not overbuilt and durable, so I don't predict any catastrophes happening. Knock on wood, of course. So, on to the actual build. All you need to shoot 10mm out of a USP is a USP 40, a reamed 40 Smith & Wesson barrel, a stronger recoil spring, and a slightly modified magazine. I'll go through each step individually. The full-size USP has two frame sizes, a 9mm/40 frame and a 45 ACP frame. The USP 40 is the correct donor gun for this conversion. 10mm brass is essentially 40 Smith & Wesson brass after all, just longer, so things like the breech face and extractor are already dimensioned correctly to work with 10mm. The larger 45 ACP frame may seem like the one you'd want to use to help accommodate the long 10mm rounds, but a significant amount of work would be necessary to get the breech face and the extractor to work with it, and there's also no easy solution for a 10mm barrel in that size slide. This is also the case for the USP 9mm, even though the frame is the right size. You'll also need a 40 Smith & Wesson USP barrel reamed out to 10mm. I sent my original USP barrel to 3 different smiths and they all came back with the same results. The steel is just too hard for their tools to cut into and ream out. Apparently their reamer bits would just skitter around inside the chamber and not actually bite into the metal. After many months of waiting on the different gunsmiths to all tell me that, I finally just ordered an EFK Fire Dragon barrel made of softer steel and had that one modified. The bonus is that I get to keep the original barrel to use with 40 Smith & Wesson if I want. If you do order one of these EFKs for your project, I'd recommend testing it a bit with 40 Smith & Wesson before modifying it because they do have a bit of a reputation for being hit or miss with quality control on some of these barrels, and you obviously won't be able to return it to them if you get a barrel that doesn't work and you find that out after you modified it. After you have the barrel, it's simply a matter of finding a smith with the 10mm reaming tools. I'll put the contact information below of the guy I used to do my barrel. He was cheap and fast. Obviously, with the increase in power in the 10mm load, you'll need a stronger recoil spring. I have an 18-pound spring from Wolf Gun Springs in mind, which is about where you want to be if you're going to shoot hot 10mm rounds, and let's face it, the point of this conversion is to shoot the good stuff. Removing the factory spring isn't too hard, but putting the new spring on proved to be a real challenge, so I'll share my eureka moment that saved me a lot of trouble. On the recoil spring guide rod, you'll find a hole about halfway down. After getting the spring loosely onto the rod, you'll want to insert an Allen wrench or steel punch through that hole. Then just screw the spring down into position. The punch or the Allen wrench helps alleviate the tension in the spring in the back half of the rod, which helps the spring twist all the way onto the rod. Trust me, there's no way of pushing the spring into position with just brute force, so take advantage of these simple machines to make your life easier. Finally, you'll need to modify a magazine to lock into the USP frame correctly. Because of the factory mag's thick walls, 10mm rounds don't fit in it. For my conversion, I used an STI 40 Smith & Wesson magazine, and I'll list the exact details below, part number and all that. Other magazines are also said to work, but I haven't tested them. I had to measure and cut a notch for the mag release lever, down a little bit down from the top, right in the middle of the front-facing surface of the magazine. I would suggest starting your notch a little lower than you might think, since you can tweak the top side of the opening little by little to get it perfect. If you cut it too high, though, you'll never get it to work correctly. I also had to file the follower just a little bit to make sure it passed smoothly through the entire magazine body and didn't snag on that new notch. 10mm rounds fit great inside the mag, and the mag fits perfectly in the USP frame. Put those simple steps together and you have a USP that can reliably fire hot 10mm ammo all day long. As a bonus, if you get another factory recoil spring assembly and you keep your old factory barrel, you can easily swap between 10mm and 40 Smith & Wesson. Now, there is one major shortcoming that prevents this from being equal to a factory 10mm, and that's that the ejection port is a little too small for an unfired 10mm round to eject properly. If you need to eject an unfired round, you do have to drop the magazine, rack the slide, push on the round a little bit, and let it fall through the grip. From the responses I've seen online, this is a huge deal breaker for some people for some reason, but I don't know, I think it's pretty easy to live with in a cool range toy like this. I mean, how often are you ejecting unfired rounds anyway? For me, it's pretty much never, literally, especially in this uber reliable USP and when using good ammo. That said, I do know that it is possible to enlarge the ejection port to allow for unfired rounds to eject because someone on HK Pro was selling milled slides as a part of a 10mm conversion kit a few years ago. For me, while the functionality would be nice, it's not really worth pursuing on this project just given the trouble and expense of doing it right. While I'm at it, I'd also like to have the 40 Smith & Wesson roll mark wiped off the slide and replaced with 10mm auto, but is it worth it? Maybe not right now. On to performance, which is what many people wonder about with this curious Franken gun. I've had nearly 100% reliability with mine with a variety of ammo over about 600 rounds. I did have a couple bobbles, by which I mean exactly 2 failures early on with PMC 200 grain ammo, but besides that, it's been absolutely perfect for me and I'm not exaggerating. People tend to insinuate that I must be only shooting wimpy 40 Smith & Wesson plus P-loads for some reason, but I've shot a lot of hot and heavy buffalo bore and underwood with great results. I have a list below of the different types of ammunition that I've tried, and like I said, besides a couple failures with the PMC, everything has been perfect and great. Accuracy has also been surprisingly good, considering the fixed sights on my donor gun. Rounds seem to land a little bit low generally, but the groups themselves are excellent, and it's certainly precise enough to be fun. The USP and its dual recoil buffer system has always been known for being a soft shooter in all calibers, and it's definitely true in 10mm as well. It does feel stouter and punchier than 40 Smith & Wesson when you're shooting the hot stuff, but it's very manageable considering the power. I've also put a matched trigger kit in this frame just for added niceness when shooting it. I put those matched trigger kits in pretty much all of the USPs that I have that don't already come with them from the factory. So is this going to replace your Glock 20 as your In a Woods Grizzly Bear 10mm defense gun? Probably not, but that was never the point. The point of this conversion is for people who are fans of the USP, and believe me, in 2016 there are dozens of us, to shoot the very cool 10mm round. The overall expense isn't too bad, should be easily under $200, and the results are pretty impressive. As for the gun itself, keep an eye out for deals on police surplus USP 40s, and you're good to go. All in on my project, I'm at about $550, and is it worth it? In my opinion, heck yes.